One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. So I get asked all the time about marketing strategies for social media. And instead of cramming all of them into one podcast episode, I thought I would break them up and share them individually. So today we're talking about ways that you can market your podcast on the Facebook platform. I actually have 3 strategies that I want to introduce to you and dive deeper into some of the things that I've seen work really well, and even show you some examples of how you can implement these strategies yourself. So let's get started. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut/time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent, or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways, because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? Have you been wanting to start a podcast? You've been thinking about it. It feels right. You just know this is the next thing that my business needs. Well, I encourage you to sign up for my 5-day podcast bootcamp. This is a thing that you have been looking for. It is a 5-day video series where I walk you through exactly how to start, launch, and market your podcast. And I throw in some more information about planning strategies and being consistent and how you can make the most out of your podcast from day one. So sign up for our 5-day Create Your Podcast Bootcamp at krystalprofit.com/podcast bootcamp. And do it already. You know that you've been wanting to, so just bite the bullet and join us. So like I said in the beginning, people are constantly asking me, how can I use social media to market my podcast? And today I want to talk specifically about Facebook. Facebook is where a lot of my audience hangs out, and I don't try to concentrate on all of the platforms all the time because they can be used differently. And Facebook, if I can, I can totally geek out on you and tell you all the analytics and all the data that I have that supports this. But Facebook is the number one contributor to the to my website and to getting to the actual podcast feed. Like I can go into my Google Analytics and see like where is my traffic source, like where are these referrals coming from? And y'all, like it blows me away. I just did my second quarter stats, and overwhelmingly, Facebook is at least 10, if not 20 times more traffic than anywhere else. I mean, I'm talking about Google searches, anywhere else. So if I put a link in a Facebook post or a Facebook Live or within a group or anything like that, like that is where most of my traffic is coming from. So that's just kind of a behind the scenes of why I'm using Facebook as my first example for social media. It's where I concentrate a lot of my efforts. So now I want to tell you why. So the first way that you can promote in Facebook is Facebook groups. And this is part of my why, because it's so powerful when you can answer someone's question. And I know you know this, you've seen it, everybody sees it, is there are so many spammy people that they go into a group and they immediately start basically throwing up on everybody. Like, this is my content, this is my information, this is what you should buy from me, this is my product, this is this is that, but like blah, 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 blah. Like, you don't even care. You don't even care. I know you don't, because I don't care either. There's people that come in and it's not genuine. It's all about them. And it's so crazy. So I don't want you to do this in a Facebook group. I actually want you to create your own Facebook group for your podcast. So that's like step one. Ways to use Facebook. Go create a Facebook group for your podcast, because it's a place for you to build a community. Now, you're listening to a podcast right now, right? But we're not having a two-way exchange. It's just me talking to you in your earbuds, or, you're driving in the car, you're working out, you're folding laundry, like whatever it is that you're doing, but we're not having an exchange. Like, you can't just hit pause right now and say, oh, I'm going to ask Krystal, about this. I mean, I guess you can send me an email, you can send me, a PM, a DM, whatever. You could do that. But I love the thought of having an actual Facebook community where you can not only interact with me, but you can interact with like-minded people who are coming together for a purpose. So, perfect example, podcasting. That's what we talk about here on this podcast. And if you go into my Facebook group and you ask a question about podcasting, then like that is a great place to go to ask a question about that. And I'm still working on growing my Facebook group for this podcast. Like, if you go in there right now, I think that there's less than 200 people. I mean, and one day, the goal is to have thousands of people that that's where they flock to get their answers about podcasting. But at the same time, I don't want to grow a Facebook group that is just full of people that are spamming other people, or they're not valuable, like they're not adding value to my group. So that's just kind of a disclaimer that I have about, I actually love having smaller groups, because the people that are there want to be there. I'm actually a part of a group that's over 200,000 female entrepreneurs. And y'all, it's ridiculous, the stuff that goes on in that group. And I mean, there's people that like that is their sole job, is to monitor and maintain and make sure people like aren't doing things they're not supposed to be doing. And I'm like, that's just a babysitter. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I don't want you to have to do that. So just have the idea of growing a tribe of loyal fans within your Facebook group. Okay. So the second thing I want to say about groups is I do want you to join Facebook groups where you can promote your podcast episodes or help people solve problems that aren't your potential podcast listeners already. So I already mentioned this, but the Buzzsprout Facebook community is so awesome. It is a great place for me to go and connect with other podcasters. I mean, like, shameless plug, that is my podcast hosting site, and I joined their Facebook community right after I signed up because I knew, and it's totally free. Even if you don't use Buzzsprout, go join their Facebook group because there's so many audio engineers and people that have been podcasting for decades, like people that have been doing this, you know, way before it was like the cool, trendy thing to do. And there's just so much valuable information. But I get notifications of new posts that are within that group, and I'll just kind of pop in to see what's going on and say, hey, man, like this person has a question. I could go add value to their day. I'm not solving world hunger. I'm not making $1 million doing this. But what I'm doing is going in and telling people, hey, I am a trusted resource for this. I don't normally post a link like to my own website or even to my podcast unless someone asks for it. And you have to be really careful because some groups don't want you to put any links at all in there. But what I'll do is I'll try to answer someone's question, and then I tell them, like, yeah, if you have anything else, you can shoot me an email, send me a private message, whatever, and we can continue this conversation. But this has helped me grow my authority in a lot of groups, just offering value. Like, seriously, it's helped me also get recognized by admins that are in the group. Like, they start to notice I'm actually part of a private Facebook group that you can't be a part of unless you're paid for it. And the main lady like told me and she doesn't manage this. Like, she's huge. She's a huge, like, I don't want to name drop. I don't want to be that person, but she's huge. And she told me, she said, I want to say thank you for being so active in our Facebook community because that really makes a difference. And we notice that and we see that. And all I'm doing is, someone has a question about something that I know the answer to, I just go and put it in there. I tell them my experience. And yeah, it's a lot of work. And yeah, it's, but y'all, this is what makes me happy. This is why I podcast. This is why I'm doing YouTube. This is why I share all this information, because it internally like stirs something inside of me that just shoots my serotonin. That's the good one, right? Like the happy one, like it shoots it through the roof. And I just get is serotonin the right one? Dopamine. I don't know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The good hormones that make you happy. Those are the ones that like, it just lights my heart on fire to help other people, even if it's just answering a simple Facebook post. And I have to tell you, from a personal standpoint, this has been one of the best strategies that I could have ever implemented, because now not only do people, I get private messages a lot where people are saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this? So first of all, that's great market research for future products or future lead magnets. I just take I'll screenshot or copy and paste those questions and put them in a file like, oh, this is future content. This is great. I never even thought of this question. So it's great to have that. But what's even cooler, and this has started happening more and more, and it just like, it's so validating to know that I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing at this point in my life. But I have people often tag me in Facebook groups. They're like, oh, well, Krystal is the podcast expert, or Krystal, she'll help you with your podcasting stuff because she helped me. And there's nothing like that. So build your authority in these Facebook groups in a very genuine and authentic way. Yes, it's going to take some time. Yes, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, you're not just going to go in and, put a few comments here and there and be like the go-to person for anything. But over time, this strategy can really help establish you as an authority.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
And whatever it is your podcast is about, but it can also give you opportunities to reach more people and grow your listener base, which I'm assuming that is probably one of your biggest goals. So it's also a good thing if you're wanting to collaborate with someone else in the future, but don't ever take advantage of someone. Like, I cannot stress that enough. I want you to build genuine relationships with people and offer them value. And if you keep doing that over and over again, I promise you it won't go unnoticed. Okay, so that's 2 ways you can use Facebook groups. The third way I want you to use a Facebook group is using searches for keywords. So I want you to think about this. What phrases or keywords are related to your podcast or your business or your industry? So for example, if you're a life coach, you could go into a Facebook group. Let's say I'm actually part of an entrepreneur group. I mentioned it earlier. And you could type the phrase in, find a life coach, and possibly find a ton of people who have mentioned that they're looking for a life coach. And it's really simple to do this. Like, if you're already in a group, then go to the search function. If you're on a mobile device, this is usually at the top of the screen once you're in the group. But if you're on a PC, it's usually on the left-hand sidebar, and it's just like a little search box. And type your keyword in there and see what pops up. I will do this from time to time when I'm looking for content ideas, or if someone has mentioned something. I actually did this the other day. I was looking for information on a specific type of microphone that someone suggested, and I took the name, I took it off Amazon because that's where I was looking at it, and then I plugged it into the search bar in a podcasting group, and all of these questions and all these comments, and anytime it was mentioned, started popping up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such great for content. So I want you to use it to help you either come up with more content ideas or find people that are specifically looking for the information that you have. Like, it's such a great way. Like, I cannot say enough good things about Facebook groups. And like, here's a little side note. If you haven't noticed, Facebook is actually giving preference to Facebook groups as opposed to Facebook pages. So if you start building a good quality group right now, then who knows where it could be a year from now. Start sharing that valuable content. Go live in there at least once a week, or, there's so many different ways that you can do this. And I'm actually working on having someone who's an expert in growing Facebook groups come onto the podcast and tell us some of their strategies on how they've grown to like several thousands of people in their Facebook group that are good quality leads for all of their programs. But to me, it's all about engagement. Just knowing that you could go in, ask a question at any time. No one's going to make fun of you. No one's going to call you stupid. Like, there are no stupid questions kind of thing. But I think those are some of the keys to having a really good Facebook group. So those are the 3 things I have to say about Facebook groups. Now, I want to talk about posting on your Facebook page. So I did say that groups are being given more preference as of me recording this episode right now. But your Facebook page is where a lot of people go when they first learn about you. I know when I first learn about, someone that's an author or a motivational speaker or someone that I just want to go learn more information about, I'll look them up on Facebook or I'll Google them and then their Facebook will pop up. So it is important to have a Facebook business page for your podcast. Now, it doesn't have to be under your podcast name. Like, let's say, for me, mine is called the Profit Podcast, but that is not my business page name. It's under Krystal Profit. That is a personal decision. If you want to have your podcast name be your business page name, then that's totally up to you. Or if you have a co-host, maybe that's a better way to do it, where you can both be admins on the page and respond to people and that kind of thing. But if you don't work with anybody else, it's just you, then maybe just going under your name could be a better route to go, because it's a lot easier. It'll probably show up a lot better in searches. But let's talk about some of the things that you can share on your Facebook page, and then you can actually reshare it using your personal account. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. So what are the things that you can share? I've mentioned this before when it comes to marketing your podcast, but I'm really big on graphics. So you can make pictures in Canva that I would use ones that are specifically dimension sized for social media posts, for Facebook posts. You can get away with the one for Instagram on Facebook, but when it comes to Instagram, you have to be really picky that you do the right sizes there. But yeah, you want to make things that are going to entice people to want to listen to your podcast. So this varies for sure, like based on your audience and if you have an interview or if you have a topic, like you just have something that's like super hard hitting, maybe is going to get a better response than something else that you do. And I have to encourage you just to play around with it. I really like to do, I've done quote cards in the past where I put a quote from like directly in the interview, and when I'm listening in the editing process, I'll hear something and I'm like, oh, like that's a quotable. And so I'll stop it, I'll stop the recording or, stop the editing process, and I'll go back and I'll listen to it again, and then I'll like go and create it like right then, or I'll write it on a sticky note and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my quotable for this episode. So you could do that. You can also put the title of the episode. You don't have to do anything super fancy if you don't want to, but create a graphic of some sort in Canva. And then I want you to repurpose your podcast description. So I'll touch on this a little bit. I actually am planning another episode on how I do this. I think it's going to be a video to show you exactly what I do. So you have a podcast description, which is totally separate from show notes. Okay, so show notes is what you have on your website, where if you go to episode 64 for this podcast episode, krystalprofit.com/episode 64, you're going to see everything that I'm talking about. You're going to see the outline, you're going to see some links, you're going to see some pictures, maybe even a video of what it is that I'm talking about. Those are your show notes. But the episode description is what pops up in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, like all the places that someone would listen to this, okay? So I want you to go look at episode 64, go look at it. You can do it on your mobile, on your desktop, whatever. And then I want you to compare that and how that looks to what you see in Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever, like wherever you actually listen to it if you're not listening on the website. So, and I want you to take that description, because that is what that is on the other platforms, and copy and paste it onto your graphic. Boom. Like that is what I've done. And I will show you an exact replica of what this looks like so you can see. But that's what I do. Like, y'all, it's so important. And I will stress this until I'm blue in the face. But if you take time to do your marketing right, like from the beginning, it's kind of like a process. It's not just like, oh, what's my marketing going to be, from once everything's done, like post-production and it's already published and everything like that. If you think about this from the planning stages, like before you ever even press record and you let it move fluidly through all of the processes, it's just so much easier because now I have this awesome podcast description that I created and I can use that for my Facebook graphic. So that's like a little tangent of mine. It's a little secret hack that if you see something on Facebook, that's not the first time I've written it. All I did was I copied and pasted it from my hosting site because that is where that information lives to get connected to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all those places. So I copy and pasted that and added some emojis and really that's it. And then or a link to the podcast, to go listen on episode 64 on my website. So little hack, a little secret tip there. But okay, so another thing that you can share on your Facebook page in regards to your podcast are videos. So Facebook Live obviously takes the cake because people get notified whenever you go live and you can talk about brand new podcast episodes. Like if you publish every single week, then just go live once a week. That's a bare minimum. That's all I want you to do. But I want you to go live at least once a week to talk about your brand new episodes. Obviously, you don't have to regurgitate everything that you said in your episode, but you need to let people know that it's out there. So what I've done in the past is maybe I'll give talk about one really important takeaway, or I will kind of do a cliffhanger, this is so good, but you got to go listen to the podcast in order to hear the rest of it. And then that drives traffic towards the podcast. It makes people want to go listen. So you can also go live in your podcast Facebook group. You don't just have to do it on your page. You can do it with or without someone else. I've been asked to do this a few times. I've gone live within other people's groups and on their Facebook pages. So if you're a little nervous to do Facebook Lives by yourself, then invite your guest. Let's say you interviewed someone and that was this week's podcast episode. Invite them to come on your Facebook Live and say, hey, let's chat for 5 minutes about what the number one takeaway people will get if they listen to this interview. Boom. That's it. Done deal. You don't have to do it again for the rest of the week. You have to do it again the next week. But I'm just telling you, it's just live video is what is getting the most preference right now. And I think that you should be utilizing it as much as you can. But you could also interview your guest on a live and then repurpose that content for your podcast later too. I'll probably go into detail about that in another episode, but that's something to consider. But another type of video that you can share on your Facebook page are sound bites. I've talked about sound bites several times. I'll link to in the show notes how I create these in Headliner and in Buzzsprout. But these are great things to share because they get a lot of play on Facebook, especially a lot more than on Instagram, only because I feel like people see them in their feed and they're a lot more enticing. Whereas on Instagram, you kind of have to have people that are watching your stories a lot in order to really grab that attention. So sound bites are great. I think that they're awesome for Facebook. And then another thing to consider for videos is shooting stuff behind the scenes. So I've actually, right here in front of me, I have my GoPro set up. And I started, actually just found it in a drawer. And this is so sad, y'all. My dad got it for me a few years ago. And I thought, well, I'm not an outdoorsy person because that's how it was marketed. Back to marketing. It was marketed towards people that are, climbing mountains and riding jet skis and, doing all this crazy stuff outside. And I'm like, well, I don't do that stuff anymore, so what am I going to use a GoPro for? So I shoved it in a drawer and then I start my YouTube channel and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is genius. I need to use my GoPro because now, I can show people my thought processes and what I'm doing during my podcast. So for you, if you have a podcast that is about something, tangible that people can actually see, then do a quick demonstration video and upload that to your Facebook page and say, oh, here I created this craft, or, I sat down and I did this thing, or whatever. Like, you're creating a digital course, like whatever it is that you're doing, but share a behind the scenes video and then say, hey, and go, if you want to hear more details about this, go listen to the podcast. And I would go listen to a podcast based on that, like if it's something really interesting. So just remember to always add value. That is the thing that I will say, like, until the day I die, is like, just add value, add value, add value, add value, because it will not go unnoticed. So the last thing I want to talk about promoting your podcast on Facebook is asking people to go like your post and share it with someone else. And I know that can be a little uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to selling or, asking people, practicing your calls to action and doing that kind of thing. But I promise you, this gets easier the more you do it. So I'm just going to say, bite the bullet, start doing it now when you're first getting your podcast going, because it will get easier and easier over time. It's gotten so much easier for me. It was super uncomfortable. I actually didn't even ask people to subscribe to my show. Gosh, I'm trying to think back, and I would have to go and listen to all those first episodes, which I really don't want to do because the editing is really bad. But I would have to go, I would guess the first 10 episodes of my podcast, I didn't even ask anybody to subscribe to my show. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what a waste of, potential listeners. They listen to it, because I interviewed a lot of amazing guests, and I continue to interview amazing guests. But from the very beginning, I had these really super quality people that I was interviewing, and they were bringing their audiences, and like total missed opportunity, right? I could have had, like, hey, subscribe to the show. I'd love for you to leave a review, come back next week and see what else we're talking about. But I totally missed the boat. So I want you to get used to calls to action. Ask people to share your podcast graphic or your video that you just shared, or that you have a brand new episode out and they should go listen to it. I just think that there's so many ways that you can promote on Facebook, but I want you to get comfortable just asking people, hey, will you come like this and will you share it? I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow my podcast audience, and there's a lot of really good people out there, y'all, that want to help you succeed. I want you to understand that. There is someone like me that wants you to succeed. So send it to me. I'll share your information. I have no problem sharing other people's podcasts if I think that you're adding good quality value to your audience. Like, that is for sure. I will never question that. But a simple thing to say is, well, if you found this helpful, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who would enjoy it too. Because if they enjoyed it, there's a good chance they know someone else who's going to like it as well. So that's all I have for y'all about promoting on Facebook. So I'm going to recap real fast. The 3 things that we mostly talked about were Facebook groups, posting on your Facebook page. Oh, and let me touch on this. We didn't really talk about resharing anything on your personal account. So if you create something on your Facebook page, I automatically, like after it posts, which I normally schedule things out, but after I get a notification that it's posted, I reshare it with my personal account. And there's a few reasons why I do this. One, it triggers the algorithm into like, oh, someone's sharing this, right? But I don't get a whole lot of play off of that, only because it's my profile and it's my page. But if I share it, there's been times when I've shared something to my personal page where I get even more comments and more engagement than I do just sharing it from my business page. Again, it goes back to the preference of, pages aren't getting as much organic play because Facebook wants you to pay because they are a business, and I totally get it. But it is a way for you to reach a little bit more of your audience if you reshare whatever it is you're sharing from your business page, from your personal page. Okay, I felt like that was another rant. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is asking people to share your content. Ask them to like it. If you found this helpful, I'd love it if you'd share it with someone who'd enjoy it too. Steal that line. Memorize it. Say it over and over and over again. Just say it to yourself. Say it to yourself until you finally feel comfortable saying it in a Facebook Live or writing it in a post, like whatever it takes. But start asking people, because if you don't ask people, they're not going to do it. Period. The end. They are not going to do it. So you have to get comfortable asking. You have to get comfortable asking people to subscribe to your show. Like, right? It's the same thing. Asking for reviews, because if you don't start asking people, they're not going to do it. So just get comfortable, and I promise it does get easier as time goes on. But that does it for this episode. So if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe and hear about the other fun things we'll be talking about in the coming weeks. Be sure to sign up for the 5-day podcast bootcamp and check out the other great resources we have in our resource library over at krystalprofit.com/tips and strategies. And check out the show notes for this episode 64 at krystalprofit.com/episode 64. And you're going to see all of the things that we've talked about here today. So that does it for today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Krystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Krystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.